My first lesson in physics, force, velocity, speed, it came when I was 4 years old. When your dad hits you with a certain degree of force, you end up on the floor really hard. My dad was a World War II vet, ended up on a B-17 as a bombardier. He was shot down over Germany on his 13th mission, landed on a rock and broke his leg in 9 places. Ended up with a French underground. The French underground didn't have the medication, so they had to give him to the Nazis. They did put a cast on him, they gave him medication, but he was abused of all 1945 until actually General Patton liberated his camp. He was known as Nice Guy Dave. Before then, he came out of the war two very different people. Went to college, got his teaching degree. I would walk by as a little kid and look through the window and see the kids laughing and him sitting at his desk teaching the class, and it looked like he was having a wonderful time, but then I knew that same man would drive in the driveway. I'd hear the car door slam, and then I knew I was in trouble for something I hadn't even done. I became the brunt of his anger and abuse that he could not show in school. We're living with my grandmother, and I'm in the kitchen being disciplined, and I'm literally flying across the kitchen, hit the wall just as my mom came back in from shopping. And it was at that point she said, okay, she finally saw something happen. And she took the 3 kids away. We moved an hour away. Life became very different. It was a loving home. She takes my hand and leads me in one of the most simple, beautiful sinner's prayer. And I just prayed and I agreed with everything she said. Then one day, the Lord just said to me, I want you to forgive your father. And I said, well, Lord, I'm really trying. He said, no, face to face. And that's when it got really real. It was July 4th, 1982. So I walked over to my dad and I go, Dad, I just wanted to tell you that I love you and I forgive you for everything that ever happened. And he said nothing. But I put my arm around my dad and I just touched his shoulder. The second I touched his shoulder, he began to weep and he began to bend over, weeping and weeping. He takes his left hand and puts it around my waist to hold himself up. The second he touched my waist, I began to weep. And then I just turned and I put my arms around him and I hugged him. And then I walked away. And we never talked about that moment. But that night when I went to go say goodnight, no longer did I just shake his hand. I didn't even think about it. It came time to say goodbye, and I reached over and I just gave him this big bear hug. And he goes, whoa, that's different. He goes, wait a minute, come here. So I bear hug him again, and he hugs me, and he goes, let's do this. Let's do this every time. The doctor, the attending, physician, the resident, the anesthesiologist, they're all surrounding his little bed. I just kind of lean over, grab his hand like this, and I go, love you, Dad. He looks at me and goes, we don't do this. And he just grabs my face and starts kissing me in front of the doctors. He turns my head and he goes, this is my son. Looks at the doctor and goes, he's great and I love him. And he puts me down. They take the stretcher and they start to wheel him away, and my father yells out, stop! Because I can't see my son. Turn the stretcher around. So they turn the stretcher around. The girl is pulling him back and he's blowing kisses. My eyes start to fill up with tears. So I blow him kisses, he blows me kisses, and he takes his finger like this and begins to kiss his finger, and then kisses the other one, and then starts shooting. They pull him in the elevator, and the door starts to close, and I watch my dad lean with the door. As the door is leaning, he leans over the edge. He kisses his thumb and puts it up like this as he winks at me as the door closes. And so we went to wait, and they called. It's an hour procedure, and a little over an hour later they called us, and we went. And the doctor came in with the anesthesiologist, which I didn't know why. And he just said, I am very sorry to tell you that Mr. Dupre died on the table. In the middle of crying myself, Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him kissing me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him holding my head and pointing at my face. I'm so proud of him. And that image has never left me. Every day I am convinced beyond the shadow of a doubt that's how my papa sees me. Not just my earthly father, my heavenly Father. He smiles, he points at me. He turns to Michael the Archangel, that's my boy. I love this kid, I love him. I know that my God he's crazy about me. I'm his boy, I'm his loved one, and I don't have to do anything to prove it. My life is not a life of proving something. It's a life of living out of peace because I'm already loved.